My name is Jenna Dykman, and today we are going to show you how to make a mirepoix. And joining me is...
I'm Carla Robles. I'm currently in the Nutrition and Dietetics program here at Utah State University.
Okay, great, let's get going. So what veggies are we using in our mirepoix today?
Yeah, so a mirepoix usually consists of onions, carrots, and celery. And so just kind of to keep in mind, it is a 2-1-1 ratio. So we have 2 onion, 1 carrot, and 1 celery. Another thing you can keep in mind is thinking of it as a percentage. So you would have 50% onions, 25% carrots, and 25% celery.
Okay, because sometimes your recipe might say exactly how much to use of each ingredient. And if you're making your own recipe, you can keep that ratio in mind of how we always want more of the onion and a little less of the carrot and celery. Very good. Okay, and let's say we're making different types of recipes. Does it matter how big those pieces are that we chop them?
Yeah, so it does. So you want to use a bit smaller pieces, about 1/4 of an inch for sauté dishes. And then for soups and stews, you want to use kind of like a medium size, about 1/2 an inch. And then for stocks and broths, you would use larger pieces, about 1 inch or 2 inches.
Okay. I kind of like to think of it because with sauté recipes, they cook a lot faster, so you want those smaller pieces. Soups, you simmer them or boil them for a while. Stocks, they can take a lot longer, so you want bigger pieces on that end. So that's good to know about that ratio. Carla, can you show us how to prepare these veggies? Let's say we're doing soup. Can you show us how to prepare these veggies for that?
Yeah, of course. Let's get started. So I'm going to start with the onions. And since we're making a soup or stew, like you mentioned, we're going to cut them about like 1/2 an inch cube. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start off with cutting the ends here. Just making sure that my fingers are clawed, just to make sure we don't cut our fingers off.
We don't want our fingertips in the mirepoix.
Alright, and then I'm just going to stand it up here and then just cut it straight in half. Perfect. I'm just going to take off this first layer over here. Oops. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut them kind of starting at an angle here and just making sure I don't cut all the way through. This will just help keeping the onion together, and they just help not have been scattered all everywhere. So I'll just cut them just like this. The end here, making sure I have good balance. All right, and then I'll turn them, and then I'll just cut them horizontally all the way through. This will help us give us an even cut all around. All right. So we're just going to measure it out. Today we're just going to aim for about 2 cups of onion. So we'll just see where we're at right now. We'll just put this all in here to make sure we measure everything correctly. So that's about 1 cup. We'll just put this in our bowl here, and we'll cut the rest of the onion to make sure we have 2 cups.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what a mirepoix is, where that word comes from?
Yeah, so mirepoix is a French word. And essentially, it's just a flavor base. And so, like I mentioned earlier, it is just primarily consisting of onions, carrots, and celery. All right, and then we'll make sure that we have our other cup. So we'll just measure this out and make sure we have perfect. And we'll just put them in this bowl. Okay, next, we're gonna be cutting our carrots. And these have already been previously washed, and so to start we'll just cut off the end roots here and then the tip as well. Oops. Right, and then you can also peel these as well, but in this case we decided not to for today. Okay, and then we're just going to cut them into thirds, and then we're just going to stand them up and then cut them down the middle. just for your fingers. Right, and then for each one, we're just gonna cut them also into thirds or fourths, however you think will work out.
So Carla, cutting these carrots in half like that, did it make it a little bit easier to cut them with that flat surface?
It did, yes. You definitely want to make sure you have a flat surface when you cut them, just because they're very round. And so if you cut them when they're already round, that can definitely cause you to accidentally cut your finger or just roll off of the cutting board.
Kind of like that other carrot didn't want to stay on the cutting board.
Again, it's not the end of the world if they're not even, but you definitely do want to make sure that they are as even as possible. All right. Right, and then for here, we'll just have about 1 cup of carrots. So we'll make sure that we have 1 cup here. Okay, I think it looks like about 1 carrot is good.
Yeah, great.
So we'll just pour that in here with the rest of our...
So it looks like if you have a little bit bigger carrot, you might get away with just using 1 if you're using a cup, but if you've got smaller ones, you might need 2, maybe even 3.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Right.
How about the celery?
Right, and then for the celery, we're gonna do the same thing, just make sure we cut the end roots here. So we'll just cut that here. And then the tip as well. And then here I'll just probably do the same thing as the carrots. We'll just cut them into about thirds. And then that makes it a little bit easier to cut, so we're just going to do also thirds here as well. Right, I think I'm going to cut the other celery. Just looks like we might need a little bit more, so we're just going to do the same thing here. Just cut the root off and the tip. Okay, looks like that's about half a cup, so we'll just put them in with the rest of the veggies.
Or a full cup?
Yes.
Yep. Very good. Now we've got our base, we got our veggies prepped and cut, and now let's cook them.
Yeah.
Okay, great job on prepping those veggies and teaching us how to chop them. What's next? How do we cook these?
Yeah, so now that we have our vegetables all cut, now we're just gonna start cooking them. So I'm just gonna grab about a tablespoon of olive oil. Of course, you can use butter if you'd like, or you can just eyeball the oil if you'd like. And I'm just gonna pour it into our pan here.
If you're using butter, how much would you use of the butter?
We'd also use about a tablespoon.
Okay, great.
And then just to indicate that the oil is all ready to go, it'll just be shiny or glossy.
So we might wait a second and wait for it to heat up for a minute or 2.
And then I'm just gonna swirl the pan around. If you're using a larger pan, just doing this will help just evenly distribute all the oil around the pan.
How does that look? Do you think it's ready to go? Is it looking glossy to you?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
Okay, perfect. And we'll go ahead and put in our veggies into our pan. Again, you'll just see a little bit of a sizzle, just making sure that we're evenly distributing everything to make sure everything is cooking evenly. And we want to stir occasionally, about maybe 30 to 60 seconds every time. And we're going to cook these about 10 to 12 minutes or until we notice that the onions are starting to be translucent. And you can see that the celery is starting to be a brighter color as they're cooking. And you can probably also start noticing that the onions are starting to get a little translucent. Kind of see that little green undertone as well.
And Carla, you're using the word translucent. We might have some people watching this who aren't quite sure what that means. Can you kind of describe what that means for us?
Yeah, so it'll just be kind of like I would say like a pale yellow color. As you remember we started off with the onion just pretty white in color, so they'll just be a little bit more, yeah, like we mentioned, a little bit more on that yellow side. And of course, you can always adjust the heat just to make sure that we don't brown any of our vegetables.
Great.
Right, so we have about 10 minutes in, and now I'm just gonna turn off the heat. I think they're about ready. As you can see that the onions are now translucent, kind of like I mentioned before. They're just kind of losing their color, kind of in that point where they're starting to caramelize, and so that's a good place to stop because we don't want our vegetables to be any browning in there. And like you can see here, the celery is also a vibrant color.
Okay, great. So I think we should give this a test just to see. Maybe let's scoop out some of the veggies first and we can just let them cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, now that we are at the 10-minute mark with our mirepoix and we've cooked it, and like you've mentioned, we aren't trying to brown it, and so 10 minutes might seem like a lot. You might feel a little impatient. You might want to turn up the heat, but just be patient because really what we're trying to do is sweat the onion, or sweat the vegetables, so the onions, the carrots, and the celery, and we're bringing out that sweetness in these vegetables, bringing out that flavor. So we're getting that flavor base rather than trying to brown them and caramelize them like Carla was saying. Because then, now that we have this base, we can make a sauteed recipe. We can make a soup or stew, or if we have even larger pieces, we can make a stock with them. And so patience is key with the mirepoix. Should we try out these veggies and see how they taste?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hopefully they're cool.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carla?
Yeah, the texture, we're kind of starting to see that, like, they're starting to be tender. We have a little bit of crunch, excuse me, in there. I can also taste like that sweetness of the onion. We're starting to get that sweetness in there.
Yeah, I agree. The onion is not that potent flavor in it anymore. It is really more sweet, and the carrots are still a little crunchy, but we're not trying to cook them at this point. We're just bringing out that nice sweet flavor, and I think that's what we achieved.
Yeah.